Welcome to the fan favorite, Everything Compliance, Shoutouts
We'll
and
move
Rants.
to fan favorites, shout-outs, and rants. We'll keep the same order. Mr. Armstrong, do you have a shout-out and or rant for us today?
I do. So, as people can see from our trendy wallpaper, I'm in Caudry Towers, a relatively rare trip down to London where I've been all week. And we're about a block away from the courtroom that's being used for the Prince Harry trial. And because we have at the side of our office a little bit of space, if you like, amongst the what count for high rises in the city, we've had the pleasure of having the news helicopter outside our window for 2 days solid. And so my shout out is to chopper pilots, and particularly news chopper pilots, who seem to just sit there up in the air, by the looks of it, without a coffee break, waiting for Prince Harry to emerge from a courtroom at an unspecified time between 9:30 and 5:30. And of course, to prove by their use of constant helicopter surveillance that Harry's claims that the press are harassing him are entirely wrong.
Mr. Kelly.
First, having heard Jonathan's rant about the helicopter pilots, this immediately does make me wonder. So if you're there, if that's your job, how do you get a bathroom break if you're in a helicopter for 8 or 9 hours in a row? I'm going to have to ponder that for the rest of the day. I'm not sure I want to know
But
the answer.
I don't know whether they have two choppers, because you'd think that there are flying regs as well, wouldn't you?
It may be. But I have a shout out. And in sticking with our TV and pop culture theme, I'm just going to say that. So last weekend, I saw the new Spider-Man movie, Across the Spider-verse. And I have to say, this is one of the most stunning movies I have ever seen. I would recommend it to everyone. I took my young kids to see it. They loved it. They are early elementary. I am sure it would be great for teenagers, older kids. It's fantastic for adults. This movie is brilliant. There are not enough positive adjectives in the English language to describe it. Just the way that they envisioned it, the way they designed it, the plot is riveting. It will leave you spellbound at the end. It is a cliffhanger for a third one that's going to come out, I think, in March. It is clever. It is the actors who do the voicing, is brilliant choices there. You cannot say enough about how good this movie is. And even though it is a cartoon, if this is not a contender for Best Picture Oscar next year, I don't know what would be. Everybody would enjoy it. You probably worth seeing the first one that came out 5 years ago. Also an excellent film, but this one is just off the charts better. It is one of the best movies I've ever seen, and I'll stop there.
Mr. Marks, do you have a shout-out and or rant for us?
I have a shout out. So I'm going to sports this week. And before I get into the individual who I'm going to shout out, I think we're seeing, at least from my perspective, we're seeing some sons of baseball players that have now entered into the realm of Major League Baseball. And I can only imagine playing on a Major League Baseball team, knowing that my father was either a fantastic ball player or a Hall of Famer. And so my shout out this week goes to a Philadelphia Philly by the name of Kody Clemens, whose father was Roger Clemens. Tom, that should hit home to you since they're from Houston, I believe. And this kid came up through the Phillies and had a little bit of a tough start and has really come into his own. And last night I got to witness a little walk-off magic for the Phillies, which doesn't happen all that often, especially this season. And I give him credit. His dad was at the ball game. I think it's tough playing and trying to compete with that big of a presence. And this kid's managed to keep it together. Shout out to Kody Clemens.
Jay Rosen, do you have a shout-out and or rant for us?
I do, and surprisingly, mine's about sports too. I just wanted to say this is one of my favorite times of the year because we have the four major sports happening. It's usually close to the June that we have with NHL and the NBA Finals. We've got training camp starting and baseball's beginning its monotonous march towards September. So if there isn't anything that you like out there, I'm sure you can go to ESPN 39 and watch some pickleball. Or I was jonesing so bad the other night, I was watching, I think it was either Nebraska going after their third title in a row on women's softball. So here's to the time of the year. There's something out there for everyone. So enjoy your sports.
I'm sorry, Jay, but that was the University of Oklahoma, and I have to make that correction for my good
Thank
friend
you.
Terry
Thank you.
Scow. I'm going to give multiple shout outs, and my shout out starts with Richard Vandeford at the Wall Street Journal for reporting that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has allowed a lawsuit to go forward that risque music at work might be illegal. So, first of all, shout out to Richard Vandeford for following my lead and reporting that rock and roll is relevant to compliance. Number one. Number two, the end of rock and roll is nigh, because now courts are going to opine on whether risque lyrics in rock and roll can be an actionable offense in the workplace. And I'll end with all those people in the 50s who said, if you listen to rock and roll, it'll rot your brain. Guess what? They were right 70 years ago, and they're right today. It'll destroy your hearing, and my mother told me that. She was right about that, but it'll also rot your brain. So shout out to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals for letting a lawsuit go forward that says risque or rock and roll at work can cause problems, and you can get money for it. Gentlemen, this has been way too much fun. We need to do some pop culture episodes more often. I look forward to seeing what we can come up with next.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Have a great weekend, everyone.
See ya.
This is Tom Fox. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Everything Compliance, Shoutouts and Rants. If you've enjoyed this episode, I hope you will subscribe, rate, and review wherever great podcasts are listened to. We're going to take a short hiatus for the month of July, but we will be back with Everything Compliance, Shoutouts and Rants. I hope you will join us then.